Love can sometimes be shattered by the harshest words from those we trust the most. In this heart-wrenching story, Ly Tu Diem faces painful rejection from Toan's mother, leaving her devastated and broken. Choosing silence over confrontation, she silently walks away from the man she loves most, while Toan remains unaware of the storm tearing them apart. Will their love survive the wounds of misunderstanding and silence? Dive into this emotional journey of love, pain, and hope. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for more stories that touch the heart and soul. Under the dim, flickering light of the small room, Ly Tu Diem collapsed onto the cold floor, her body trembling with a mixture of anguish and disbelief. Tears cascaded down her cheeks in endless streams, blurring the harsh reality that had just shattered her world. The cruel words from Toan's mother echoed relentlessly in her mind, each syllable piercing through her heart like a sharpened dagger. She felt utterly exposed and vulnerable, as if every piece of her soul had been ripped apart by those merciless insults. The accusations and contempt she had endured were not mere criticisms, they were an assault on her very existence, stripping away any sense of dignity she had left. The room around her seemed to close in, suffocating her with a weight heavier than she could bear. Her breath came in ragged gasps as memories flashed before her eyes, moments of laughter, shared secrets, and dreams woven with Toan's presence. Yet now, those precious memories were stained with the bitterness of rejection, replaced by a deep, gnawing pain. How could someone who loved Toan, who cherished him with all her heart, be so cruelly cast aside by the very family she had hoped to belong to? The humiliation burned fiercely within her, a relentless fire that refused to be extinguished. She tried to steady herself, to find some anchor in the storm of emotions raging inside. But the words, harsh, unrelenting, and cruel, kept replaying in her mind like a haunting refrain. Each insult chipped away at her self-worth, making her question everything she thought she knew about love and acceptance. The feeling of being despised, misunderstood, and unfairly judged overwhelmed her, crushing her spirit beneath its weight. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if she had been a fool to believe in the promise of happiness with Toan, if her heart had been naive to trust so completely. Yet beneath the sorrow, a fragile flame of resilience flickered. Ly Tu Diem knew she could not let herself be defined by the cruelty of others. Still, in that dark moment, the ache in her chest was unbearable. Her tears fell like rain, each drop a silent testament to the heartbreak she carried. She longed to scream, to demand justice for the wounds inflicted on her soul, but the sorrow rendered her mute. All she could do was curl inward, seeking solace in the quiet despair that engulfed her. The night stretched endlessly, the shadows around her deepening as she remained motionless, lost in the tempest of her emotions. She felt isolated, as if no one could understand the torment that raged inside her heart. The love she bore for Toan only deepened the pain, making the rejection all the more unbearable. She had hoped to build a future by his side, to share in a life filled with warmth and companionship, yet now that vision lay shattered like fragile glass at her feet. In the silence, The cruel words echoed again, merciless and unyielding. Yet somewhere beneath the tears and pain, a quiet determination began to rise. Ly Tu Diem understood that this wound, though deep, would not be the end of her story. The insults, the humiliation, they could not erase the love she held or the strength she possessed. But in this moment, overwhelmed and broken, she allowed herself to grieve, to feel the raw sting of heartbreak, knowing that healing would come only after she embraced the depth of her sorrow. In the days that followed, Ly Tu Diem wrestled with a storm of conflicting emotions. The pain inflicted by Toan's mother lingered like a shadow over every thought, casting doubt and fear into her once hopeful heart. Though her love for Toan remained steadfast and true, the cruel wounds left by his family's rejection gnawed at her spirit relentlessly. She realized with a bitter ache that sometimes love alone was not enough to shield her from the harsh realities around them. The prospect of facing Toan, of looking into his eyes and pretending that nothing had changed, became an unbearable burden. So she made a painful, quiet decision. She would step away from him, at least for now. Not because her love had faltered, but because she needed to protect herself from the growing despair that threatened to consume her. She knew that if she continued to stay close, the hurt would only deepen, and perhaps one day, it would tear apart what little happiness remained. And so, with trembling hands and a heavy heart, she chose silence over confrontation, distance over explanation. Without a word, without a goodbye, Ly Tu Diem slipped out of Toan's life like a fading whisper carried away by the wind. The days stretched on, and though her absence was quiet, the ache within her chest was deafening. Each moment without Toan felt like a wound reopening, raw and fresh with longing. She missed him fiercely, his smile, his voice, the gentle way he always seemed to understand her without words. But the pain of betrayal and rejection weighed so heavily that she could not bring herself to reach out, to ask for comfort or forgiveness. Instead, she buried her sorrow deep inside, hiding behind a fragile mask of calm and composure. Her nights were the hardest. Alone in the stillness of her room, tears would come unbidden, flowing freely as she allowed herself to mourn the love she had lost. The memories of their time together, the stolen glances, the whispered promises, the dreams they built played over and over in her mind, both a balm and a torment. She wondered if Toan ever thought of her, if he understood the storm raging within her heart. But the silence from his side only deepened her loneliness, fueling the doubts that maybe, just maybe, the chasm between them was wider than she could bridge. Yet, even in the depths of her despair, a quiet hope flickered. She clung to the belief that true love, if meant to be, could survive the harshest storms. That perhaps, in time, Toan would understand why she had vanished without explanation, why she needed to protect her heart by walking away. It was a hope wrapped in sorrow, fragile and uncertain, but it was the only thing that kept her from falling completely into the darkness. Ly Tu Diem knew the road ahead would not be easy. Healing would take time, and forgiveness might be a distant dream. But for now, she had to honor the pain she felt, to give herself space to grieve and to grow stronger. The decision to leave was not a betrayal of her love, it was an act of survival, a painful but necessary step to preserve the pieces of herself that still believed in love's promise. And so she waited, in silence and solitude, nursing the wounds that no one else could see. Her heart ached with every beat, but she held on to the memory of Toan, to the love that had shaped her, and to the hope that someday, somehow, their paths might cross again under kinder skies. Unaware of the storm raging in Ly Tu Diem's heart, Toan remained steadfast in his search for her. His days were consumed by a growing worry that gnawed at his soul. Why had she suddenly disappeared without a word, leaving a silence that echoed louder than any explanation? Toan could not understand the void that now separated them. The warmth and closeness they once shared seemed like distant memories slipping through his fingers. He searched tirelessly, visiting places they had once been together, hoping to catch a glimpse, to hear a familiar laugh, to feel the comfort of her presence once more. Each attempt to reach out, every message sent, and every call made was met with silence. The absence of a response cut deeper than any rejection because it was a silence filled with mystery and pain. Toan's heart ached, torn between frustration and hope, longing and helplessness. He wanted to believe that Diem's disappearance was temporary, that this painful distance was merely a hurdle they could overcome. But with each passing day, the weight of uncertainty grew heavier, and the realization that he might have lost her forever began to settle in his bones. What Toan did not know was the cruel reality behind her withdrawal, the sharp words of his own mother that had shattered Diem's spirit and forced her into this painful retreat. Had he been aware of the torment she endured at the hands of someone who should have embraced her, he would have moved mountains to protect her, to shield her from the venomous rejection. But blinded by his own love and unaware of the battle raging behind closed doors, Toan was powerless to intervene. His innocence in the matter made the eventual heartbreak all the more tragic. Meanwhile, Ly Tu Diem grappled with her own anguish. Every time Toan's name crossed her lips in the silence of her solitude, her heart both ached with longing and clenched in sorrow. She mourned the love they shared and the future they had dreamed of building together. Yet, the fear of further pain and humiliation kept her firmly rooted in her decision to stay away. The thought of facing Toan, of explaining the wounds inflicted upon her, felt like an insurmountable mountain, one she was not yet ready to climb. Despite her silence, Ly Tu Diem's love for Toan never wavered. It lingered in the quiet spaces of her heart, a bittersweet reminder of what had been and what might have been. But love, she learned painfully, could sometimes demand sacrifices that broke the very hearts it sought to protect. And so, she remained distant, hoping that time might heal the wounds and perhaps, one day, allow their paths to cross again under different circumstances. Toan's search, though earnest, grew more desperate with each unanswered call and unopened door. Friends whispered worries in hushed tones, urging him to be patient, to understand that Diem's silence was not a rejection of him, but a cry for space to heal. Yet, Toan's heart refused to accept such a fragile consolation. He clung to the hope that one day, Diem would return, that she would break the silence and let him back into her life. But fate, cruel and indifferent, had other plans. The distance between them, both physical and emotional, grew into an abyss too wide to bridge. Ly Tu Diem's resolve to protect herself kept her from the man who meant the world to her, and Toan's inability to know the truth kept him from saving the love they shared. Their story became one of silent sorrow, unspoken pain, and a love that remained alive only in memory. In the quiet aftermath, all that was left were the echoes of what once was, the tender moments, the whispered promises, and the shared dreams now buried beneath layers of silence. Toan continued to hope, and Ly Tu Diem continued to grieve, their hearts forever entwined yet painfully apart, caught in the cruel web of circumstance and misunderstanding.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Ly Tu Diem Review. Mình chính là tác giả của kênh Ly Tu Diem Review. Và cảm xúc của các bạn đối với tập phim ngày hôm nay có hay không ạ? Bản thân tác giả thì thấy cảm xúc của bản thân đối với tập phim ngày hôm nay thì rất là đau lòng khi mà Ly Tu Diem đã quyết định chia tay CEO Toan trong im lặng, trong khi đó